On November 26, 1941, Japan's fleet set sail toward Pearl Harbor under strict radio silence. The operation was meticulously planned to avoid detection. The Japanese fleet traveled across the vast Pacific, carefully evading American radar and reconnaissance. Meanwhile, U.S. intelligence had picked up signals of a potential Japanese attack, but these warnings were dismissed. American leaders believed Japan would strike in Southeast Asia, not daring to challenge the United States directly. The day that lived in infamy. On the morning of December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor was unusually quiet. It was a Sunday, and most of the base's personnel were either on leave or enjoying their day off. At 7:55 a.m., Japanese aircraft descended upon the harbor in waves. Within minutes, the tranquil waters of Pearl Harbor erupted into chaos. Bombs and torpedoes rained down on the U.S. fleet, targeting 8 battleships and numerous other vessels. The attack was devastating. 5 battleships were heavily damaged, and over 180 aircraft were destroyed on the ground. More than 4,500 American servicemen were killed or injured. Yet, amid the destruction, there were notable omissions. The U.S. Navy's aircraft carriers, key to modern naval warfare, were not in the harbor that day, a stroke of luck that would later prove crucial. Japan's decision to attack the United States was driven by both ambition and necessity. By 1940, the country was deeply entrenched in its war of aggression against China. This conflict was draining Japan's resources and economy, making the need for new sources of raw materials increasingly urgent. Southeast Asia, with its vast reserves of oil, rubber, and other strategic resources, offered a way out of this quagmire. However, these territories were controlled by Western powers, particularly the United States, which had already imposed economic sanctions on Japan. The most critical of these sanctions was the embargo on oil exports, cutting off Japan's lifeline for its military and industry. Facing economic strangulation, Japan's leaders concluded that war was their only option. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack, had studied in the United States and understood its industrial might. He knew that a prolonged war with America would be unwinnable for Japan. Yet he believed that a quick and decisive strike could cripple the U.S. Navy, buying Japan the time it needed to secure Southeast Asia and fortify its defenses. The origins of Japan's Pearl Harbor attack are surprisingly rooted in fiction. In 1921, British journalist Hector Bywater published The Great Pacific War. This novel depicted a hypothetical Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, followed by their capture of Guam and the Philippines. What might have been a mere work of imagination became a source of fascination for Japan's naval strategists. The book was even included in the curriculum of Japan's Naval Academy, shaping the thinking of a generation of military leaders. By the 1930s, this fictional scenario began to look more plausible. In 1932, the United States held military exercises in the Pacific, simulating an enemy attack on Pearl Harbor. The results were disastrous for the hypothetical defenders, revealing vulnerabilities that Japan would later exploit. These events were not just coincidences. They laid the groundwork for one of the most infamous military operations in history. World War II was a time of unprecedented global turmoil, a conflict that spanned continents and oceans. Among its pivotal moments was Japan's surprise attack on Pearl Harbor, a bold gamble that forever altered the course of history. This act not only brought the United States into the war, but also marked the beginning of Japan's eventual downfall. Yet, the story of Pearl Harbor didn't begin on December 7th, 1941. It was the culmination of decades of ambition, desperation, and strategic planning. To understand why Japan took this drastic step, we must first consider the larger geopolitical context. Japan, a small island nation with limited natural resources, was determined to become a dominant power in Asia. Its leaders saw the rich colonies of Southeast Asia as the key to achieving this goal, but standing in their way was the United States, a country whose industrial and military power dwarfed that of Japan. 80 years later, the events of December 7th, 1941, continue to resonate. The attack on Pearl Harbor was a turning point in World War II, marking the beginning of the end for Japan's imperial ambitions. It also underscored the power of unity and determination in the face of adversity, a lesson that remains relevant today. As we reflect on the legacy of Pearl Harbor, we are reminded of the sacrifices made by those who lived through that fateful day and the enduring impact of their courage and resilience. The story of Pearl Harbor is not just a tale of loss and devastation. It is a testament to the strength of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable challenges. The attack on Pearl Harbor was more than a military operation. It was a calculated gamble with profound consequences. Japan sought to secure its place as a dominant power in Asia, but its actions only hastened its downfall. The attack united the United States, mobilized its vast industrial resources, and set the stage for a global struggle that would ultimately reshape the world. From a modern perspective, Pearl Harbor serves as a reminder of the dangers of underestimating one's adversaries and the risks of overreaching ambition. It also highlights the importance of adaptability and resilience in the face of unforeseen challenges. The attack on Pearl Harbor shocked the American public and ended the country's era of isolationism. On December 8, 1941, the United States declared war on Japan, uniting a divided nation against a common enemy. Factories that had been idle during the Great Depression roared back to life, producing weapons, aircraft, and ships at an unprecedented pace. Japan's initial successes in the Pacific, including the capture of Guam, the Philippines, and Singapore, gave way to a relentless American counteroffensive. Battles like Midway and Guadalcanal showcased the ingenuity and resilience of the U.S. military, as well as the limits of Japan's strategic vision. While Japan's attack was a tactical success, it was far from perfect. The Japanese pilots failed to target key infrastructure, such as Pearl Harbor's shipyards, repair facilities, and oil reserves. These omissions allowed the United States to recover far more quickly than Japan anticipated. Admiral Yamamoto, reflecting on the attack, reportedly said, "I fear all we have done is to awaken a sleeping giant and fill him with a terrible resolve."